It came as no surprise to me to find out that Al Capone fixed racehorses. Was there anything this man was not involved in, outside of cybercrimes? Anyways, let's get into the video. Alphonse Gabriel Capone, better known as Al Capone, remains one of the most infamous criminals in American history. Born in Brooklyn, New York in 1899, Capone rose to power during the Prohibition era, capitalizing on the public's demand for illegal alcohol. His criminal empire extended far beyond bootlegging, encompassing gambling, prostitution, racketeering, and even fixing horse races. Despite his many crimes, Capone managed to evade justice for years, cultivating a public image of a charitable businessman while ruthlessly eliminating rivals. This video provides an analysis of Capone's criminal undertakings, his organizational methods, and the specific strategies he employed to dominate Chicago's underworld. Al Capone was born to Italian immigrant parents and grew up in a rough Brooklyn neighborhood. He joined street gangs at an early age and was eventually mentored by gangster Johnny Torrio. Torrio introduced Capone to organized crime and later invited him to Chicago, where Capone would eventually take over his mentor's criminal operations. Capone's early criminal activities included petty theft and involvement in gang fights. However, his rise to prominence began when he relocated to Chicago and became involved in Torrio's burgeoning bootlegging operation. The introduction of Prohibition in 1920, which made the production and sale of alcohol illegal, created lucrative opportunities for organized crime, and Capone was quick to exploit them. Capone's most prominent and profitable criminal activity was bootlegging. With the passage of the 18th Amendment, the production, transportation, and sale of alcoholic beverages became illegal in the United States. Capone saw this as an opportunity to supply the high demand for alcohol through illegal means. Operating primarily out of Chicago, Capone established a vast bootlegging network that imported liquor from Canada, manufactured alcohol in hidden distilleries, and distributed it through a web of speakeasies and corrupt officials. Capone's organization bribed police officers, politicians, and judges to look the other way, ensuring that his operations ran smoothly. Capone's bootlegging empire was estimated to be worth over $100 million annually at its peak. He controlled much of the alcohol distribution in Chicago and became known as the king of the Chicago underworld. Violence was a hallmark of his operation, with rival gangs often facing brutal suppression, including murder, if they attempted to encroach on Capone's territory. In addition to bootlegging, Capone ran a series of illegal gambling dens throughout Chicago. These establishments ranged from backroom poker games to lavish casinos. Gambling provided another significant revenue stream and also served as a front for laundering money earned from other illegal ventures. Capone ensured his gambling establishments operated without interference from law enforcement by bribing officials and employing enforcers to maintain order and intimidate competition. He even extended his gambling operations into the suburbs and neighboring states, solidifying his control over this illicit industry. Capone's empire also included extensive prostitution rings. He ran numerous brothels across Chicago, exploiting women and generating substantial income. These brothels were often protected by corrupt law enforcement officers who received a share of the profits. Capone's involvement in prostitution was particularly insidious, as it involved trafficking and the coercion of vulnerable women. Despite public outcry, law enforcement was largely powerless to shut down these operations due to Capone's extensive network of bribes and political influence. Another cornerstone of Capone's criminal activities was racketeering. He forced legitimate businesses to pay for protection from damage or harassment, often caused by Capone's own men. Those who refused to pay were subjected to vandalism, arson, or physical violence. Capone's racketeering extended into labor unions, where he installed his own operatives to control labor strikes and negotiations. This allowed him to manipulate industries and extort additional funds. Through racketeering, Capone further embedded himself into the fabric of Chicago's economy. One lesser-known aspect of Capone's criminal empire was his involvement in fixing horse races. Horse racing was a popular form of entertainment and gambling during Capone's time, and manipulating the outcomes of races could result in massive profits. Capone and his associates would bribe jockeys, trainers, and even track officials to ensure that certain horses won or lost races according to their betting strategies. This manipulation allowed them to profit significantly by placing strategic bets on predetermined outcomes. Capone's influence extended to racetracks not just in Chicago, but also in neighboring states. He used threats and violence to ensure cooperation and silence from those involved. This form of corruption further illustrates the breadth and sophistication of Capone's criminal network. Despite his criminal activities, Capone cultivated a public image of a benevolent businessman. He donated large sums of money to charities, established soup kitchens during the Great Depression, and was seen as a modern-day Robin Hood by some members of the public. These actions were not purely altruistic, but served to garner public support and reduce scrutiny of his illegal enterprises. By positioning himself as a benefactor of the poor, Capone deflected attention from the violence and exploitation that underpinned his wealth. Capone's criminal reign reached a turning point with the St. Valentine's Day Massacre in 1929. 7 members of a rival gang were gunned down in broad daylight, allegedly on Capone's orders. The brutality of the massacre shocked the nation and intensified efforts by law enforcement to bring Capone to justice. Despite numerous attempts to link Capone to various crimes, he was adept at avoiding prosecution due to a lack of evidence, and his ability to intimidate or bribe witnesses. Law enforcement, including the newly formed Federal Bureau of Investigation, began using alternative methods to dismantle his empire. Capone's downfall came not through violent crime charges, but through tax evasion. Federal authorities, led by Eliot Ness and a team known as the Untouchables, meticulously gathered financial records to prove Capone had not paid taxes on his immense income. In 1931, Capone was convicted of tax evasion and sentenced to 11 years in federal prison. He served time in several facilities, including the infamous Alcatraz. His health deteriorated in prison due to untreated syphilis, and he was eventually released in 1939. Al Capone's legacy is complex. He is remembered as a ruthless gangster who wielded immense power and inflicted significant harm, yet he is also romanticized in popular culture. Films, books, and television shows have portrayed Capone as both villain and anti-hero. Capone's life underscores the challenges law enforcement faced in combating organized crime during the Prohibition era. His ability to manipulate the system, control vast criminal enterprises, and maintain a public persona of respectability remains a testament to his cunning and charisma. Al Capone's criminal activities were vast and multifaceted. From bootlegging and gambling to prostitution, racketeering, and fixing horse races, he built an empire rooted in corruption and violence. His story is emblematic of the Prohibition era and highlights the pervasive influence of organized crime in early 20th century America. While his reign ultimately ended with a conviction for tax evasion, Capone's impact on American history and culture endures. He remains a symbol of the complexities of crime, power, and justice in modern society.